something that is very dear to my heart. It's called the September 26 Project, and I'm going to share it with you and walk you through what the September 26 Project and why. And the goal is really about helping families, all families, frankly, but particularly families with children and adults on the autism spectrum disorder, be prepared in the event of fires and natural disasters. And this is something that comes up and you don't think about until you're in it and it happens. I can share that I started off this project when I was working at UCI. That's how I met Dr. Soul. I worked at UCI and we had a grant where our whole goal of the grant was to help look at safety for both first responders and families affected with children on the autism spectrum. And one of the things that I learned in doing the research for this project was that we certainly want to train our first responders. We want to train the first responders. We want them to understand autism. We want them to know how to respond in the event of a safety or emergency or an issue related to a natural disaster. But the time that happens before the first responders turns out to be a super crucial time. So I always, when I'm doing this, I sort of look at the data. I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I like and need to look at data. So this is something that came out. It came out in May 2021. It is the National Autism Indicators Report that the Drexel University puts out. And it struck me from this report that families reported an inadequate planning for emergencies in about 4 in 10 families, that was 40%, didn't even discuss the concept of emergencies or safety at their person-centered planning meeting. That's a big number. And as I walk through this, you're going to hear why that's such a big, important number. And that they were not prepared for COVID, and most of us weren't, but they're just, in general, families have so much happening, so much going on, that thinking and planning for an emergency or disaster is probably often the last thing on their mind. We know that quality of life for families is something that's on top of mind all of the time. Families are constantly worrying and thinking about the quality of life for their children with autism. I have a stepdaughter with autism. She's 31. It's on the top of our mind at all times. As a matter of fact, we were with her last night for dinner and we were talking about some things related to her health that we were very concerned about with her. It's constantly on our minds, right? Any families on this presentation are probably nodding and saying, yes, what am I doing? What's going to happen when I'm no longer here, right? What's happening now? What's happening next week? Well, if you take some time to Google what happens in the event of a fire with children with autism, I'm continuously amazed at how frequently I can go on and Google child or adult with autism and fire and find terrible results. This last one that happened in January 17th, Michigan house fire kills 2 and injures 5 with autistic teen still missing. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine that, right? What would happen in the event of this? Now, we also know from the research that the feeling of control for a parent, the locus of control, right, is a term that we use, that most families that are not raising a child with autism, that feeling of control, meaning how in control do they feel of their child? Most families have an internal locus of control, meaning they feel more in control when they are raising their child, neurotypical child. Families of children with autism tend to have an external locus of control, meaning they don't feel in control of their child's behaviors or how they're raising their child. And it's more so in males than females. Males feel less in control. I'm sorry, females feel less in control of raising their child with autism. And so we have stressed out parents. We have parents that don't feel in control, right? And this is regardless of the severity of autism. And when we think about safety, fire, disasters, that we have some terrible outcomes. So this is, for me, number one topic where I feel like as a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst, using the strategies of ABA, I can have an impact on a family, and families can feel more in control if we spend a little bit of time thinking about safety and preparing for safety. And we know there's research out there. I'm part of a study myself on dental research where we know when we applied specific behavioral strategies to a very specific area of need. For that study, it was toothbrushing, oral health care. Now I'm talking for safety. We know that we can make a significant lasting change. So I'm going to share a video with you. It is a triggering video. It is the reason this project got started, and it is related to a parent here. I'm based in California, a parent in California who was a fierce advocate for her son. And I'm going to let this story tell itself. I'm going to share it. I do know I need to stop sharing my screen for a second and reshare. I'm sorry for that glitch here with the advertisement. Hold on. Sorry for that. I had it up and ready. Let me. Here we go. It's ready. Apologize for that.
Champion for the families of autistic children. Feda Al-Malidi won a battle to secure crucial health insurance reform.
As KPIX5's Kit Do reports, she died trying to save her autistic son's life.
I first met Feda Al-Malidi back in 2009, and after that interview, I knew she was a woman to be reckoned with.
If you ever had the chance to meet Feda Al-Malidi, what you're about to hear will come as no surprise. It was 2 a.m. Saturday morning when her home on Sarah Place in Fremont caught fire. It started somewhere in the kitchen, and by the time she woke, the house had begun to fill with smoke and flames. Feda escaped, but then realized her son, 15-year-old Muhammad, was still in a second-story bedroom.
Wouldn't go down the stairs.
Longtime friend Karen Fessel, who also has an autistic son, said the children can often be overwhelmed by the chaos.
Probably the smoke alarms were going off and the smoke, and I'm sure he was just incredibly sensorily overloaded, which is what happens with our kids. Swinging, swinging.
We first met Feda and Muhammad back in 2009, when Kaiser had denied them services, even though she'd been paying premiums for 25 years. She sued them as part of a class action lawsuit and won.
The parent going up against, the largest health care provider in California. It is a David and Goliath story.
But she didn't stop there. In the following years, Feda walked the halls of Sacramento, browbeating, meeting, laughing, and crying with state lawmakers until she helped get a landmark bill passed in 2012 that required insurers to cover treatments for autism. Her work improved the lives of nearly 100,000 autistic kids in California. Firefighters found them upstairs. Feda had her arms wrapped around her son one last time. The Fremont fire chief said her actions were selfless and valiant.
She was holding him. She was found holding him. Yes, my reaction was, of course she died trying to save him.
Family have begun arriving from as far away as New York and Jordan. They didn't want to talk on camera, but did say that Feda doesn't belong to them. She belongs to the world.
And she loved him fiercely. And when I heard that she died in the fire, I knew right away that she was trying to save Muhammad. I knew it.
In Fremont, Kit Do, KPIX5.
So every time I see that, it's heartbreaking. In California, Feda was a force to be reckoned with. I'll share, gosh, I'm sorry. Every time I see that happens. So what we do know from this situation is, sorry, that in the home, there were not working fire alarms. There was one that was not working. There was one that was believed to have been turned off because of the noise upsetting Moo. There were not working fire extinguishers or carbon monoxide. And Feda's sister, who you're going to see in the next video, had shared that they were so involved in the care and treatment for Moo that they didn't think about it. That was the last thing on their mind. And this was obviously a tireless advocate for not only her son, but the community at large. And so what we know is that autism spectrum disorder, individuals are at a higher elevated risk for injury or death. And I'm sorry, I said this is going to be not as upbeat and fun, but it's very serious, particularly when confronted with an emergency situation such as a house fire. So I believe that as a BCBA, as an ABA provider, we spend significant amount of time with families due to the nature of our work. We're in their homes, we're in their communities, we're in schools as ABA providers. And it is my personal belief that we have a responsibility and have to, a call to action to help families to know to be prepared in the event of an emergency or a fire or a natural disaster. We are spending countless hours working on other areas of need with family members. And in my mind, this is exactly what we need to be doing in addition to all that work. So after Feda's death, there were a number of folks in the California community, particularly the National Council on Severe Autism, of which Feda was a founding board member, and the California ABA Association Stakeholder Committee. Feda was a member of that as well, and so am I. I'm involved with both projects, and we decided that we needed to take action. And along that, with the surviving family members, we created what's called the September 26 Project. September 26 Project is a website. It is a call to action. I'm going to share it with you now. It is hosted and funded by the National Council on Severe Autism. And the work is done. Let me share my screen. Again, the work was done by several of us in the National Council of Severe Autism and the founding family. It is free website, is open to anyone. And now I'm going to share with you the story behind the September 26 Project in the family's words, because it is their story to tell.
My cousin Moo was a really loving kid with severe autism. He was almost 16 years old, and he was a really big guy. So I know it was very scary in the smoke, and I was screaming for my mom, and it woke everyone up except for Moo.
While the family was sleeping, flames ripped through this Fremont home early this morning. Relatives tell us Feda Al-Malidi and her 15-year-old son, Moo, who has autism, died in the fire.
The impact that you've had on your son, on your family, on other families, on the field, that is a tremendous gift. And I know that sometimes you're like, I don't even have a high school diploma. Who am I to be doing this? Who am I to be writing these articles? But what I see is this like kick-ass amazing person.
In an emergency, how do you prevent tragedy and protect your family from such a senseless loss and death? Our purpose is simple. Every year on and around September 26, we'll provide advice, guidance, and reminders to families with children and adults with autism and developmental disabilities on how to prepare for emergencies, whether they are fires, earthquakes, floods, or any other natural disasters. We want your family, your kids, parents, and caregivers to be safe. Our website is designed to be easy to use and share, featuring both simple and elaborate steps you can take. So if disaster strikes, you will have the ability and the fighting chance Fida and Mohammed did not have. This response and collective effort is the act of love we have for Fida and Mu, and the love Fida and Mu had for anyone that touched their lives. We hope this will continue their beautiful and heroic legacy that Fida and Mu put into motion.
It was the only way we can take this pain and turn it into a powerful action that we hope will save lives. So please mark your calendars, print out your checklists, and check the tiny details in life, like fixing or checking if your smoke detectors work in your house.
She was a fighter to the end, and this was her last fight that we hope will save your life and the people you love. From their life's work to their death, they will never stop fighting for you and your family.
Because this is like an oasis of hope and love, because that's what you built. You built this.
My Aunt Fida was a very strong and brave woman.
I didn't want parents to suffer like I did. I didn't want one more family, to go through all those sleepless nights not knowing that if their kid's going to make progress or if they can get the therapy for them. I just didn't want another mom or dad to go through what I went through. I cared about the kids, but I feel like people forget sometimes the plight of the parents. It's really easy to look at a kid with autism and feel sympathy for them. It's a whole other thing to look at their families and to really understand what they go through. I don't feel like the greatest mom all the time, I really don't.
None of us do, right?
But I know that I do everything out of love.
Yep.
My kid, really.
Yep.
Like, I am loyal to that kid.
I know you are.
And I
This is ride or die shit right there.
That's my dog. That's my dog.
Hey, sorry. Okay, so this is obviously this is a passion project, and I want to share with you all this website. We are active on social media, particularly Facebook, if you'd like to go on our page and like us. Obviously, September 26th is the day that Fida and Mu passed, so that's the day. We will do we did this year. It was a year this past September. We will do it again this next September, and put out the call of action. But the website speaks for itself. So for families out there and for any ABA providers that are on this call, this website provides you with an opportunity for an environmental analysis as part of your work with your families. So as ABA providers, when we're working with families for the first time and for ongoing care, we are supposed to be assessing the need for the child and the family. We're supposed to be assessing the environment. And as part of that environmental analysis, I am calling and urging all families and providers to look at these fire safety checklists. So we have 3 on this website right now. There's the fire safety checklist. There is a natural disaster checklist and a wandering and prevention checklist. I'm going to walk actually through this website because in my mind, this website really speaks for itself and walks you through the journey that you need. So if you click on the fire safety checklist, there are some important components to be prepared. So this is be prepared in the event a fire might have. We've spoken with national fire departments. We've spoken with particularly a couple of fire departments who have, whose firemen have children on the autism spectrum and are fierce advocates, and they guided us through this checklist. So the very first thing you want to think about is, do you have smoke alarms on every floor? There should be one on every floor. Most homes these days have them, but what happens is their batteries run out or people disconnect them. It's a very common story that we've heard that families disconnect their fire alarm who have children with autism because when it goes off, it's upsetting for their child. I am here to say that that's the exact natural situation that could occur to practice what to do in the event of a fire, because it's not likely that we're going to actually rehearse fire alarms in a real life situation. And the closest that we can come to is if the fire alarm should happen to go off if you're cooking or something happens. So it creates a scenario that gives you the closest you can to the fire alarm going off to a real life situation that you can practice. Now, one of the things that comes up for families is they say, what if they can't afford it, right? We've heard that. What if we can't afford to get a fire alarm? We learned there are two main locations to go to get this. One, if you go onto the American Red Cross website and you look specifically under their fire safety equipment, they have a program where they will provide a family with fire alarms. We also learned that if you go to your local fire department, those departments want to help you actually, and they will come to your home. Now, during COVID times, they put some of this on hold, but I know here in California, they're saying they're back doing this. They will come to your house and they will inspect your house. They will check to make sure things are working properly, and they can install a fire alarm system, smoke detector system for you if you need it. So right there, that takes the barrier off that resource. And those are two free resources for a family. On our website here, as you're looking at it live, we have links for you to go on and get this information. So there's the fire safety equipment from the Red Cross. You would go to your local fire department. There's also Nest Protect by Google is a device that some families use and are kind of picking up in interest. So people are using these Nest alarm system that can also include a voice activated sound that would tell people there's an emergency, get out of the house. So this is crucial. This was not in place in Feda and Moo's home. Step number one, you heard in the video, it was her niece, Maysoon's daughter who was speaking, who woke up and smelled the smoke and realized there was a fire. We know that Moo also had medicines that made him sleep heavier, right? And so we want people awake and alert and hearing these. And so the other component of this is that it is recommended, and that's in this checklist, that there be someone who is designated in charge of the person with autism in the event there's a fire to help make sure that child wakes up to the alarm and gets out of the house. The second component on our checklist in our environmental analysis is a carbon monoxide detector. There is, according to the fire department report, they do suspect that if there was a carbon monoxide detector in the house, it would have detected that prior to a fire alarm going off. So this is all prevention, emergency prevention. Same thing, American Red Cross and your local fire department will help you and install a device for you and pay for it. The next component on our checklist, our environmental analysis, is that you have a working fire extinguisher. There was a fire extinguisher in the home. The fire did start in the kitchen. It was an electrical fire. The fire extinguisher they tried to use was broken and didn't work. Same resource. Go to American Red Cross, go to your local fire department. There should be one on every floor. Working on every floor, and they do need to be checked every year annually, and your fire department will help support you to do that. Now the next one is 2 exits out of the home. It is also the thought that a child with autism, if at all possible, could and should be sleeping on the first floor. Moo is at the top of the stairs, and he would not go down the stairs. It is a common scenario, particularly in California here. There are a lot of 2-floor homes by design. Now, I have a very good friend, one of my best friends, whose son is severely impacted with autism. He's 22. And his bedroom, all the bedrooms are on the 2nd floor. That's the nature and build out of the home. His bedroom is the top of the stairs. Her and I designed a second exit plan out of his bedroom window and or her bedroom window. Now we think, how are we going to get him down there, right? We don't know. We've actually never fully rehearsed this, but we've prepared in that as a result of this project, frankly, that she has an old mattress in her garage, and she has one in the neighbor's garage. And the idea would be there is a rope ladder in his bedroom and her bedroom. And the idea would be that the rope ladder's tossed out. We have practiced the rope ladder by hanging it from a tree, and that the person designated, which would be her, would get him to the rope ladder. And if he won't go down the rope ladder, she's simply going to shove him out the window because he's going to land on the mattress, because there's a second person designated for the mattress and there's a neighbor in the event they can't get up. Now, is this far-fetched? Maybe. It's the closest we could come to for right now. We also have placed a fire-resistant blanket in the bedrooms to wrap him and her in. And we know that we have to put under the door something to prevent smoke and fire from getting into the bedroom. Now, there's another initiative that we've learned in this project, and it's called the Close the Door Initiative. And if you go on the Close the Door Initiative, what we've realized is the materials that we're using now to build homes, in 20 years ago, it would take 17 minutes for a home to burn down in a fire. Now, the average time it takes for a home to burn down in a fire is 3 to 4 minutes. That's significantly less time because of the flammable and the materials we're using in our homes. So a fire-resistant blanket and closing all the doors is a way to give people more time until the first responders can get there. And that's part of what we're doing. We're being prepared and buying time. We know from Maysoon and Feda's sister and her niece, they opened all the doors. They opened all the windows. They were panic struck that Feda and Mu had not left the home. And so they were opening doors thinking that they were helping, giving different exit options. And that escalated the fire, according to the fire report. So we know that these are ways for prevention, like to be as prepared as possible. And so as an ABA provider, it takes me no time to sit down with a family, pull up this website and walk through these steps in this environmental analysis and say, how are we going to be prepared? The next thing that comes to mind, and if you Google stories about situations with fires, particularly the one where the autistic teen went missing, the child with autism needs to know where to go in the event of an emergency. There needs to be a dedicated spot to go to, safe away from the fire, but close enough that everyone would know that this child knows this is where I'm going to go, and the family knows and neighbors know to go look for the child at that spot. So you need a designated meeting spot, and you need to practice this spot. If you click on these websites, we have evacuation plans that you can create and pull up. We have them in English and in Spanish, and we have this planned out for you so you would know this is how I'm going to create this visual story for my child while I'm going through the teaching of this. The last thing in our fire safety checklist is to go to your fire department and, frankly, the police department, all your first responders. When we talk to these first responders, they say, we want to know who these kids are in our community. We want to know where they are. We want to know where their bedrooms are. We want to know what the state of their house is being. We want to know how we think that child might respond. They want to know this. They tell you. So we use the word register with your local fire department, police department. There's no actual registry, but they want to know. We interviewed countless local fire departments, and they all said, come and to meet us. They want the kids to see them in uniform, in their fire gear. Or adults, they want them to see the fire truck. They want them to hear the sound and get used to the sound and recognize that the sound is a sound of help, that help is on the way. And then finally, for any emergency, You need to have your personal information somewhere safe. Now, the older days, as you had it laminated, there are also apps on your phone where you can download. You need to have crucial medicine. If things burn up in a fire or in a natural disaster, a tornado happens or hurricane happens, and you can't get to it, you need to have your medicine and medical information stored somewhere so you can access it. In the event, imagine it goes away. What are you going to do about it? And so if you click on this site, there are apps. You can register it. You can have it laminated, but you need to think of a backup plan on where you're going to store all of this information. So a little bit of effort up front literally can save lives. Which is the goal of the September 26th project. Now, the same holds true for a natural disaster checklist. I'll walk us through this. Natural disasters can be similar or different to a fire, but again, have a device to store your medical information, medication, special instruction. We've downloaded here for you the 10 best apps that we found to do that on your phone. The other thing is, do you have a disaster supply kit, right? What if there's a hurricane, a tornado, a flood? Do you have the critical things you need? There are apps here that we have that you can click on. You can get emergency disaster kits for your home at little to no cost. And in the event, if you live in a hurricane zone, an earthquake zone, a flood zone, these sites give you the recommended things to have in the event you need to evacuate and you need to go, right? If you have to stay home, do you have a survival kit? And we know parents, warrior parents of children with autism are constantly thinking about, what do I need to do in the event of this? But we're saying take it a step further to think about, what if everything's wiped out? What are you need for your child to survive? And then a few other things that I'd like to point out is, do you have, in the old days, we called it like an emergency phone tree. That's how old I am. But nowadays we're really talking about, like, do you have a contact list of people in your neighborhood? Should you get separated from your child with autism and an emergency is happening, do you have neighbors nearby that know something about their child and can help protect and guide that child? This is crucial, particularly in the event of an emergency disaster or a wandering situation. I've worked with countless families where a child is known to wander, and we know where the child might likely wander to, and we've set up neighbors who are on the watch that we can call down and say, are they there? Are they there? And check. And so utilizing your community in the event of this situation. I'm going to share my PowerPoint again. Again, such a somber project, but literally there's no quality of life. Maysoon, Feda's sister, said this. She said, God damn it, Kelly, there's no quality of life if the child is no longer with us. And so we're taking quality of life to its purest form and saying there needs to be quality of life, meaning there needs to be life. If you go on the website and actually click on where it says download the safety checklist now, this is what it looks like. It's not pretty, but it works. And it basically, particularly for professionals working with families alongside them, to click on and say, do you have a smoke alarm on every floor? Yes or no? And let's get the resources and supports in place to make that happen. Same with carbon monoxide detector, same with fire extinguisher. Are there 2 exits out of the home? Are you familiar with the Close the Door initiative? Do you have a meeting spot? Have you registered with your local fire department? And do you have your personal information stored in a backup situation? And so as behavior analysts, if you're on the call, we do this as part of our initial intake and a 6-month progress review. And we check this, yes or no, and then we go on the website and see what support we need. The last part of this is the actual preparing, and what are we going to do in the event that we want to practice, for instance, a fire drill, right? We want our child to be able to exit, right? And now we vetted this through the National Council on Severe Autism. And, we're talking about children and adults severely impacted with autism, and every one of them, even, every one of them said, I don't know that my child would leave when I tell them to leave because they might be overloaded. And I get it. And so I am suggesting that we use behavioral strategies. And in this model, we're talking about behavioral skills training, which is specifically providing instruction, modeling, rehearsing those instruction, and providing feedback. And so what I'm suggesting is that we create an SD, if you will, a discriminative stimuli, a command that family members use that's very specific, that says, this is an emergency, right? Get out. Go to the meeting spot, and that we train for that specific SD, and we practice, this is an emergency, go to the meeting spot, and that we provide social stories, right? We model, we rehearse this, and we reinforce the response from the child of actually getting out of the house and going to the meeting spot. Now, this is not perfect. We don't know that it's going to generalize in the event of a fire. I've heard that question, and I don't know. I hope no one ever has to experience it and test that out. But if the fire alarm goes off in an accident in your home, now you say, this is an emergency, get out, go to the meeting spot, and you practice it, right? Will that cause that child some distress because of the sound? Maybe, but that distress, and for me, but maybe not true for everyone, that distress means the child is responding and they'll know what to do with that feeling. And we all may have some peace of mind, right? We also want to rehearse and practice that the child stays at the meeting place until they're told not to. There are a couple stories that have been brought to me where a child left the house, went outside to the meeting spot. And one story I heard was the child realized they didn't have a shirt on, and they'd been told, don't go outside without a shirt. And they ran back into the house to get a shirt and perished in the fire. And so there does have to be some training around stay at the spot until an adult comes and tells you something different. And again, this might need to be tweaked individually for each child because we know every child in their situation is different, but this is a tool to write a goal. It can be written in an IEP, it can be written in an IPP, it can be written into an IEP, an ABA plan, but are goals to put in place so that we can say we've practiced and we've rehearsed. We are getting out of the house. We're waiting till an adult comes and tells us it's okay to return to the house. And we have a secondary exit plan that we've rehearsed to the best that we can. The same might be true for an emergency, a natural disaster situation going through our plan. I also know ABA providers that sometimes insurance companies, certain insurance companies will deny goals related to safety. I don't know why. They're talking about medical necessity. They want us to write goals that are related to medical necessity specific to autism. This can be written in that as a receptive language goal, frankly, that the child will follow, receptive language or receptive information, including but not isolated to. And so writing these types of goals into your plan and part of your environmental analysis are crucial. Have to be done and rehearsed and put on maintenance plans and revisited at the 6-month progress reporting time or the quarterly benchmarking time, whatever is in your planning. Or for families, at the bare minimum, if you mark in your calendar September 26th, we are saying, mark it, that's the day to go through your checklist. Are you prepared? That's the day to go through, is your child able to understand to get out and follow these instructions in the event, this very specific discriminative stimuli in the event of an emergency? In September 26, we do have these sample goals. And we have these different strategies you can use. We have antecedent strategies, we rehearse, and we have consequence strategies. So the call to action for all of you is the September 26 project. Go on our website, go on our Facebook page, take the skills yourself, share the word. The hope would be that this never happens again to another family.